we get started, I know there's a few people in the parking lot coming in. JT's got them, so it's a few minutes after 4. And y'all have the pleasure of me being up here a little bit tonight, so sorry about that. Welcome to the November meeting. Glad you guys are all here. Hope you're excited about some DIY projects that we'll learn about from JT. And we have a few announcements as normal to go over. And my name's Mitch. If you didn't know, it's right here on my name tag. I have been bringing these, but people request them. So they're up there if you want to use them. Nobody's required to use them. But since I brought them, I put it on. Just in case you don't know. So, yeah, let's jump into it. This slide just says club announcements. We'll also talk about BAP entry. We've got a member profile. Dave Broussard will be doing that today. And then JT's doing the DIY. I will be talking about the species profile, which will be dwarf Sagittaria. And then the attendance raffle. Is that happening this month? Yeah, that's happening. So, just kidding. Sorry. So club announcements. Apparently we're going to review the mission statement. Let me do that. To create an aquarium club of like-minded aquarists to discuss the aquarium hobby, learn from fellow aquarists and professionals, have aquarium-related events for members to exchange in fish and plants, promote the hobby beyond our group to encourage fish keeping within our community. I think this year we've had a pretty good start to that. You know, we're coming to the end of the year, so we're already thinking about 2023. What are we going to do in 2023? And we're trying to come up with some things that will, you know, this mission statement, the underlying theme behind it. All right, so you're kind of reaching out. So we're working on that. If you have any suggestions, anything you'd like to do with the club, throw it out there. Let us know. We'd love to discuss it and see what we can do. Congratulations to Cassandra for the banner contest. It's been up this month, so new contest for November is posted. Don't forget about that. I haven't really even looked at it, so just like many of you, maybe take a look at it, post a picture if you got one. Next meeting will be in December. It is the second weekend, so this is the only week that we're doing this, other than in the beginning, but that's here and there. So it'll be the second week in December. Details to be announced. We've had a couple things that have been presented that we may do, so we'll let you know when that's worked out. It's kind of changed things a little bit. We've been discussing doing a Secret Santa. There's been a little bit of conversation about that. Instead of just doing the normal table, do that, have tickets, you go up and pull something, but then the next person can take something that's already been pulled, or go to the table. Would you all be interested in doing that? I mean, I need commitment that we're not going to throw any elbows or drop kicks or anything like that. I think it'd be fun. So,
Can I bring it back with me?
yes, you can bring it up. We'll put a limit on that too. You know, you can only bring so much duckweed. Don't bring it all. Yeah, I tried that one month, if you remember. Nobody took it. And what was worse, I took it home and put it in the garage and forgot about it. It started stinking really bad. Local fishy news. Open chat message for the club has been a success. It does have a lot of activity. If you are still getting notifications from that and don't like it, let us know. We'll show you how to shut that off, because every now and then we get someone who complains that they're getting overwhelmed. You do automatically get put in that once you join the club, or join the Facebook group. Yeah. We do have the new merchandise, the new shirts. So you check those out over here. The new shirt's $20. The original, down to what, 5? We only have select sizes left. It's a great shirt. I know the printing's not great, but it's a great shirt. All right. It's not that the printing's not great. It just doesn't show up well on the shirt. So I wear mine a lot. I like it. And then of course we have the second generation one too, and it's a nice shirt. They are over there. Those sales do help support the club, and you know, since we don't do membership and all that, that's one of the main ways that we're building up funds in order to do things. The October Fish Swamp was great, and we're looking forward to the next one in the spring. That announcement on the date, that'll be later. We'll make sure we're trying to work around a few things, so expect that date to be a little bit later, maybe first of the year sometime. But thank you to everyone who came out, everyone who participated, everyone who had a table, everyone who came and bought stuff. I don't know if anybody traded. I think there was some trading toward the end of the day, and that was fun. But it was great. Next year, we'll talk about time. I feel like the end of it's always kind of slow, so maybe we look at the time. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but it's something we can talk about, and you know, or maybe we just make the last hour or something a social event or something, just to kind of keep everybody there and have fun.
Is there any opinions on that time frame, like morning? There is like both a morning and afternoon time period.
Yeah, you can do afternoon.
I don't know what you guys would prefer, you know, we're open to anything really. No comments?
Afternoon works better for me.
Okay, and maybe we do
Maybe
one
do
of
like
each or something.
or we'll do like, maybe like one of those polls beforehand.
Yeah.
But we will, like going into like actually renting the building, we'll have to do it far in advance. So we'll do a poll then at that time.
Yeah, and it's, we get it 8 to 3, which is why we did the 9 to 2, so it gives an hour setup and an hour tear down, which is like chaotic and crazy, which is a lot of fun, honestly, but it's still chaotic and crazy. But I do feel like it goes a little long, and everybody comes at the very beginning. Everybody comes for the selection. Nobody stays for the deals, but you know, which happened at the end. But you know, it's good, great selection. We had amazing tables. I was excited to see it. And also thank you to the volunteers. I didn't make a list, so I'm not gonna try to name everybody because I'll forget, but everyone who volunteered, that was amazing. Because I don't know if you know this, but the first one, it was extremely chaotic and there wasn't a lot of us doing things. So it was, you know, because a lot of the board had tables too. And so I didn't stop at all that one, and I was completely, voice was gone. So this one, I actually got to enjoy it a little bit more. So thank you from me, thank you. All right, next thing is the BAP committee. We've got a little bit of discussion as to who's going to be doing this. I hope they've worked it out. I did not see any wrestling in the back, so you lost. Okay, I'll give you that.
Okay, so Renee submitted some endlers. For those of you who don't know about the BAP program, we're doing basically you breed a fish or a shrimp, or we're still talking about coral. We haven't decided on that one yet. But she did breed some endlers, so we just want to recognize her and her accomplishment. If you do want to submit a BAP to the system, the forms are on the website. So, any questions about BAP? Or, okay.
Awesome. Thank you for this, for the submittal. Submittal, is that right? Submission, that's the correct word. Submittal is not right. Don't even know where that came from. All right, so the next thing is the member bio. You know, I have a little window here where I can move ahead and not have to hit that and back up. I should do that. So the next part is going to be our club member bio. This is something we started off with doing, and I know the board members kicked it off and did it, and then we had a few people in the club members who did it as well. Sean, I think we can count your first one as yours, unless you want to do another. Because you led one of the meetings and talked about your hobby. But if it's something you'd like to do, here's the thing about this. This is why I think the member profiles can be a great thing for us. We hear a lot of, the Facebook group, we are constantly rejecting people putting up stuff about, does anybody know who sells this? Or does anybody know who would take this? And all the time, we can't do that on Facebook whatsoever. This is your opportunity to get up here and say, this is what I keep and I breed these. And guess what? I breed these. So you get in front of the group and people find out what you have. And then when they're looking for something or they got something they want to get rid of, maybe you're the person they come to because they remember this. So as far as within the club, that's how we're going to kind of facilitate that. There's no real structural thing that we're building out to do that right now. But as far as the club goes, we want everybody to be able to talk about what they're keeping, right? So that's great. We have Dave here, and I think you're ready to go.
All right. Good afternoon. Okay, so I'm relatively new to all of you guys. I moved here 2 years ago. I live in Danridge, a little bit further east, and I moved from Seattle, Washington. Some of you may be familiar with Aquarium Co-op. That was my home store, and I knew Corey when he first started out, and it was probably maybe as big as this room. And I used to go buy from him all the time, and we'd have long discussions about stuff, and then he just exploded and grew. And then about that time, I moved out here and kind of was looking for local fish stores and stuff to kind of get reacclimated. And then I was at Aquaticon last year and I saw the tables and I was like, this is awesome because we didn't have that out there. You know, everybody was basically on their own to go in and talk to whoever had a fish store and stuff like that. Thankfully enough, Corey was a really cool guy. I think he still is, but anyway, so I work in the HVAC business. If you don't know what that is, heating and air conditioning, and do commercial work. I've been doing that for, I don't know, 28 years. So I'm working kind of from the Knoxville area right now, downtown. And I've been a hobbyist since 1986. Now, some of you may go, geez, you're old. But yeah, I started off when I saw a friend's tank, and I was like, that's cool, I want to do that. And typically started off with, wow, I want Oscars, those are cool. So I had some Oscars to start off, and you know, after a while it kind of got old because they got so big and jumped out of the tank, and I was like, okay, I need to do something different. Then I was into jewel cichlids for a little while, and those were cool. They were breeding, but I didn't know what I was doing because I was so fresh into the hobby that I was like, okay, you know, what do I do? And then I kind of went from there into just, okay, I'm gonna get the coolest tetras I can find, and then now I went into big fish, and then I had a piranha phase, and I was like, I was all over the map. I was just trying to find something I liked. And so I got a job eventually at an aquarium shop and called the Fish Store. Now that shop had been in the Seattle area for 40 years. It was kind of the go-to store if you really wanted to get specific. If you look at it as more like aquatic marine, really specific, narrows down to certain stuff. And I learned a lot working in there. I learned the retail side of it. I learned how to service customers. I learned how to build custom lighting and some plumbing. And when sumps first started the box sumps first started hitting the market, I learned how to do that because sumps really weren't a thing as of yet. We were still in the under gravel filter stage, you know, real simple stuff. So I learned a lot there. And I learned a broad view of fish keeping. Saltwater, fresh, brackish, all that kind of stuff, but I never really focused in on anything specific. It was just, I had 80 tanks in front of me every day, so it was kind of like, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. So we had a couple discus in a tank, and I thought those are the coolest things I've ever seen. So I got familiar with our breeder, and he started bringing in fish, and then pretty soon I was ordering fish and turning them over, and then he kind of said, hey, I got these if you really want them for personal use. So pigeon blood discus weren't quite on the market per se like they are today, and I thought those are really cool, I'm gonna go for that. So I started off with that. I got some breeding pairs and eventually started breeding them. And I probably had 10 tanks in the house, and I was breeding discus all the time, bringing them into the store and selling them off and everything. And so I kind of got into that for a little while, and then a lot of life circumstances happened, got out of the working there, got another job and family stuff and all that, so I was kind of out of the hobby for a little while. And then came back into the hobby, I want to say about 8 or 9 years ago, and got myself a planted tank, started on that, put some rams in it, and some discus right there, and this one here, and the rams started breeding. And I was like, okay, here we go again. So I bred the rams for a little while, but I was kind of like, man, there's so much more I want to do than just have just those. And then we kind of moved along in time, and I decided I'm going to move. I'm going to move to Tennessee. And so I tore everything down. I had a whole library full of books. I got rid of those. I didn't want to move everything, moving fish across the country, all that stuff. So I kind of got rid of everything. I was a little depressed for a while. And then last, March, I think, I saw an ad on Facebook Marketplace, free 55 of the stand. This is awesome. Went and got it, brought it home, and I was like, oh, this thing needs resealing. This would be a cool project. So I resealed it, cleaned it all up, set it up, started that, and so basically since May, I've had kind of a start on a planted tank, and with the help of many of you, I won't say who, kind of over on that side of the room, have learned a lot about plant keeping out here. I guess in Washington, I must have been lucky because my plants were just going crazy, and I wasn't even doing anything. I dabbled with CO2 a little bit, but I kept using these little cartridges, they'd run out all the time, and I was like, God, what a pain in the butt. You know, one of these days I'll get into it a lot better. But, so right now I have a little planet tank. I have some breeding probensis in there that have been breeding every 3 to 4 weeks since May. I have had 2 spawns that I've kept, and the rest are kind of like, well, mom and dad decided to eat them or whatever. So anyway, oh, okay, there we go.
Oh, my fault,
Yeah,
I didn't show you.
so there, I didn't, sorry. So yeah, these are the breeding pair right now. You know, the offspring and stuff like that come through. This is like an old planet tank I had right in here and stuff like that. And then, you know, I'm glad that I came into the club because now I have a place to talk with people and share stuff and to actually petition for your help in certain things, because I don't know everything. Even though I worked in retail fish keeping for a while, that didn't teach me everything. That taught me how to turn over stuff and get it out the door. But as far as keeping it and keeping it alive, that's where you guys are very helpful. I love interacting with you guys. I do have a YouTube channel, not to promote, but from time to time I'll throw videos of, you know, the breeding pair or whatever else I got going on in there. So you're welcome to search that out. This is, you just type it in, that'll be able to find out. But anyway, I'm very grateful to you guys for letting me come up here and share myself. And if, you know, by all means, if you have any questions, like about probensis, I got a little bit of experience there or anything, feel free to holler. So anyway, thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Just check the score real quick. Still 7-3 Georgia. I'm sure there's nothing else going on in Knoxville, but I'm glad you guys came out here today, even with the weather and whatnot, the big game. I'm going to be kind of covering some DIY because I've always felt like that's been like my claim to fame as in the hobby. I really like doing it, and one of the main reasons I do it is because I probably couldn't afford if I just bought everything off the shelf. So I'm able to kind of cut some corners here and there by doing it myself, the labor, and in turn I end up having large exhibits and bigger aquariums, and that's kind of, now if I was just keeping like small aquariums, it might not be as big of a deal for me, but it definitely has changed my hobby, just kind of experimenting, and that's another phase of the hobby that I really enjoy. So kind of what we'll be covering is just some general tips, some of the core materials that I use, and then kind of like where we get them and how I use them and everything like that. Some of the different filters, because majority of my DIY has been filters, and I have made like actual aquariums and stuff too, but it's been mostly filters and stands and stuff like that. And then I'll show you some of the projects that I've worked on so far, and some of them are pretty recent. All right, so some initial thoughts. I try to always support local aquarium stores. So, I mean, you really want the aquarium stores here so you can buy the fish and then also certain products. And I like to test and try a lot of products and see what really works best for me. But I want to imagine just doing everything off Amazon and, you know, not being able to support the local hobby and that kind of stuff too. So it's kind of like a balance. Really, it's a lot of stuff that the aquarium stores don't have, as well as like, I kind of like a lot of custom and like exotic style looks, especially for like filtration and stuff. And then I've got personal beliefs based on what really works for me, and then what's in the aquarium stores. It's like everyone says, you know, the hang on the backs with the replaceable cartridges and stuff. You know, I'll use modified, basically like filtration media, and basically take all those guts out if I get a hang on the back and just put my own stuff in there. And I feel like I see better results. Also, kind of helps with just being creative and search, you know, other hobbies for materials. So a lot of this stuff I pull and utilize is from like the pond industry for smaller aquariums, because you can kind of buy same cost, but it's like in bulk type of deal. Also, there's materials out there in like the horticulture and plant industry that can be used, and a lot of times you'll have the exact same thing in aquarium hobby and the plant hobby, and the cost is 1/3 difference. So sometimes it just makes sense to pull, you know, from the plant in order to utilize what you need. And then also envision other uses for equipment. So every time I'm at like a hardwood store, hardware store, and then, or like plumbing or anything like that, I'm always looking for items and saying, can that work in an aquarium? Can I fabricate that to work for a filter, or something of that such? Even like the pool and stuff helps. Envision other uses for equipment when it's initially designed for. Experiment what works best. So I've had a lot of trial and error. I've lost fish trialing things and exhibits, and then I've had a lot of successes as well. And then keep track of total cost. So to some extent, you're trying to DIY, but you're actually, the total cost when you add it all up is more than what you could have just bought, already put together, from like a general aquarium store or something. So some other tips, make sure if it's not rated for fish, it's at least safe for human. So a lot of like hosing and stuff, you don't want to use the wrong hosing where it's going to leach out chemicals into your aquarium. Research in depth the general plumbing. So I worked at in college one summer, basically in the townhomes I lived at in Florida, and I did maintenance, and I learned like a tremendous amount of plumbing, electricity, all that kind of stuff, and that's generally helped me with kind of moving forward with like big exhibit projects and stuff like that, where I'm able to run my own electric and do all the plumbing for it, and kind of just recreate or create that from the ground. I use the internet and YouTube a lot, so guarantee if you search something, there's going to be at least 10 videos per what you're thinking of doing DIY. And over the years, I'd say over the past like 10, 20 years, it's really kind of just gone crazy as far as how much is available out there. So there's no point in always experimenting and trialing yourself when someone has already mastered it, and you just kind of re-follow that and do it yourself in your own, in your own house. And then reduce the risk of leaking and overflowing. So I've had a lot of experience with that. So I try to make like secondary overfills and stuff to where, and then I also really focus on the sealing of my plumbing and all that, so I don't have issues going forward or down the road. And then also the safety first mindset. So a lot of tools, a lot of drilling, and then also the chemicals. So you got to worry about that when you're putting in and actually sealing your own aquariums. Because I've bought several secondhand aquariums on like Facebook or Craigslist or something like that for $1 a gallon, like really big aquariums. And I turn around and reseal them myself, and then you save a ton on that as far as that approach. But the chemicals can be very strong. What I did with my Cayman enclosure, the chemicals were pretty strong, so I had to really vent properly and all that kind of stuff. So I just didn't have myself pass out. And as well as some of the tools, I do cut holes in glass and all that kind of stuff as far as drilling. So those are all things you just kind of got to be somewhat aware of that I hope you guys think of when you're going into a DIY project. All right, so the first one, some of the core materials I use, and I mean, some of these are not necessarily like new or anything, but like these Hyder ceramic bricks, they were generally first used in the pond hobby, but I use them kind of differently, where I'll literally put them in 20-gallon aquariums and just stick them in back corners and cover them with stuff. And that's just a whole bunch of bacteria that grows on it that you have extra in your aquarium. And I kind of, when I first started, using lava rock and the ceramic medias and like pumice stone and stuff, I did some like kind of research as far as how much media do you need, and I always go way above what the industry says, because I want that fluctuation of bacteria to always have space to grow on. So what that's done for me is I really haven't had a bacteria bloom since I very first started the hobby. So those are like things that just don't happen, and people, really just, if you have way more media, and you can even put it in your aquarium and hide it in your aquarium, or in your filter and all that stuff, it'll always be able to like shrink and grow based off the demand of the, the waste that the bacteria feeds off of. So that's really important for me. But ceramic media, and I use 0.5 pounds, like half pound per 10 gallons of water is what I try and kind of, now if you're using just straight sponge, that's a little bit different because the weight, but when I'm talking about actual like rock media and stuff, that's what I generally go for. And then, you know, lava rock is probably one of the cheapest. You can get a $4 or $5 bag for 50-pound bags. So that's generally on my big enclosures, that's what I go for. As well as I try and mix it with lava rock and bioballs. And I'll buy that in bulk online or something like that. And then Metalamat, past couple of years I got into Metalamat, and I probably have all of these type of media and the matting and even like filter floss I keep in pretty much all my enclosures, whether it's saltwater, freshwater, anything. I kind of have all that in there. And I do have like small tanks with just sponge filters only, but for anything I have big and that requires some type of sump filter or bucket filter or anything, I've got dumpster or 55-gallon drum filters as well, and that's just loaded in that. And it generally does really good controlling any type of nitrates for even extended periods of times, up to 2-3 months, you know, where you just leave all that stuff in there. And it's really maybe, you know, every 6 months to a year, sometimes the big filters is when I actually like clean them out, get all that like, you know, detritus and stuff out of there. But it's what works for me. And a lot of times you can buy in bulk quantities, you can buy them from hardware stores, and it's really cheap. So pumice rock is the only thing that I've only had like some experience in from like the plant industry. You can buy them in bags, and it's still somewhat expensive, but if you compare that to like biomedia that you get from the actual like very similar biomedia from aquarium stores, there is a pretty significant difference in cost there. And then filter floss you can buy in bulk, or you know, maybe if you know somebody in the air industry, they can give you free rolls of
I
it.
have 2 rolls that big.
Maybe, you know, someone might start bringing stuff into the table. And, polycarbonate, twin wall corrugated plastic. So that's this stuff right here. I use this on a lot of my lids. I used to go for that clear, that wavy stuff that you can buy at like Home Depot.
Greenhouse paneling,
The what?
greenhouse paneling?
Yeah, the greenhouse paneling. I didn't like it because, you know, you got the sides are open and exposed, so this can really fit in that little gap on your lids. So I use a lot of that. It's more expensive than the greenhouse paneling, but it's not as expensive as buying glass or something like that to match the aquarium. And then I also use egg crate. And the egg crate I use for, it may be like to hold structure in the aquarium. I can stack rocks on it, and it's really usable or user-friendly as far as zip tying it. So the zip ties and the egg crate, you can create like structures. You're not having to just use so much heavy rock and stuff, and you can kind of save a lot on your weight in your aquarium. And then bulkheads, any of the external bins that I've created, whether it's above the tank or below the tank or some type of sump and everything. I do a lot of drilling, and everything I use bulkheads, but I try and get those from like the local aquarium stores because, you know, both the Aquarium in Knoxville and Aquatic Marine keep those in stock. Generally, most the sizes that you need, sometimes they're, you know, they haven't been out, but I could buy those online. I could buy a lot of stuff online, but I try and see, you know, who's got it locally and try and buy from them first before I just look elsewhere. A couple more materials. So, sure, a lot of you guys saw my table at the swap. I do a lot of like finding of wood. So all different type of local wood, that driftwood and stuff that you find. I get a lot of mine from Lake Norris, and that could be a huge like cost savings right there. And kind of rather than just getting, now you may have to do some cleaning and all that kind of stuff and prepping. It's not just ready to stick in the tank always, but that's kind of like a, you know, do it yourself for me. And generally I just, when we go on pontoon, even with like family and stuff, I'll be collecting wood on the side as we're like out enjoying the lake and everything. Couple more items. So outdoor smart plugs, and that's actually what I have here today. So I'm not like, I don't have any stock in this or anything, but I need to, and I like want to promote something like this. Or I really like this brand because you can stack multiple, I guess, units on one app. So this is like an app-driven smart control, and it's something that's really like kind of changed the game for me in the hobby, because I have a basement full of fish, and this might not be an issue for everybody, but I have a basement full of fish, and they're all separated on multiple electric circuits and whatnot. And you know, sometimes you overload them, and you'll have one just turn off and everything else is running. Or, you know, when you have the whole house turn off as far as like power cut off, if you're not home, that sends a signal alert to your phone through that app within 30 minutes of the power shutting off of. So I try and put one per breaker and spread them out. And usually you don't have to tie everything to it and go through it. You can just put one light on it, but as long as you're using that breaker and the power shuts off, it alerts your phone. So, you know, I've got several of them on that app that I use, and it'll sit there and tell you which one is off within 30 minutes. So I have lost fish before in the past because of overloading breakers. And this is definitely, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the fish industry and in the market, and they're usually pretty costly as far as like the timers and stuff. But that has a built-in timer that you put on your phone on the app, so you can sit there and do an on-off schedule and everything. Even if you want to do it like, you know, a week's worth and all that kind of stuff to differentiate if you're like out of town and everything. But still, that's definitely been a game changer, and I think I got that a year ago. And I've just been putting them in all my breakers, and I even use them for our outside lights and everything else. So, but I did bring this today for the raffle, so it's going to be available. So you're welcome to try it out if you win it. Black corrugated plastic. So this is an example right here. You can get these sheets, and I haven't got them in a year, so I don't know if like the price went up or not, but I think it was like $17 for a 4x8 piece of black corrugated plastic. And how I use them, as you can see, this is a 275 just on these bricks, and then there's wood, like thick wood slats underneath it holding it. But then I use these Velcro and then this corrugated plastic as my siding, and it just kind of covers and, you know, kind of makes it a little sleek. So, you know, I use that a lot in some other areas. And then laundry mesh bags. I get these from like Walmart for like $1.99 or something, and I'll usually go in there and buy the whole box that's on the shelf. And I fill them with lava rock and all those medias and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't doing that before. I was just sticking them in big, like the bin filters that I have. And then when it was time to clean it, it was such a pain to like pull all that rock out and put them in buckets and then like, you know, actually vacuum out the bin. So I made it to where like you can just pull them out easy, and that's kind of another game changer for me as far as even like pond filtration. My outdoor units, they have that. The zippers are usually all plastic, so it all works really well and lasts a significant amount of time. So I like those a lot. Shop lights. A lot of people use shop lights. There's really only one that I like, and I've tried several of them, and it's you can get them at Rural King, and they've got like that 6,000 rating or whatever as far as the light wattage and stuff. And I really feel like, you know, they've done really good. This is on my Stingray tank, and they just grow like crazy. Of course, that's pothos, so it's pulling nutrients out of the water in that light. But I have those lights on a lot of other aquariums on like 20 gallons. They're all lined up next to each other. And it's just been a really cheap, I think they're like 20 bucks. So it's a really cheap light that you can buy. Especially if you're gonna have like big systems and stuff. That's where you really gotta start factoring in and trying to get a good deal of cost. And then buckets and drums. You know, a lot of my filtration pictures I'll show you. But 5-gallon buckets, I've got 7-gallon buckets with like a tightening sealed lid. And then a lot of like 55-gallon drums. And I always try to make sure they're food grade. As far as I've got some that I use for saltwater mixing stations, and they still, freshwater one that doesn't get mixed still has like a Mountain Dew smell. So they had like thick Mountain Dew syrup in there at one point in time. But it doesn't affect your aquarium or anything. But now, if you're worried about that, you can buy brand new. But yeah, I mean, they worked out for me really well. Usually, locally, what I can find is like a vinegar or something like that's been in them, and that's fine because usually I use vinegar just to clean all my aquarium stuff anyways. Just a good washout is all you need to do.
I got ones that had pickled jalapenos in them, and they still smell like pickled jalapenos years later, but they work just fine.
Oh yeah.
Are the 5-gallon buckets from like Lowe's and Home Depot, you know, like the orange and...
You'll see some of them are. The snap lids are actually better seals than some of those ones that you have to twist. But I can't remember what the place called. There's a place in Knoxville that has like, I think it's called Knoxville Drone. And they have like these buckets, and should have a picture on it. So this style of bucket, and it's like, it's for food, and it has like a rubber seal actually for it. And I've actually used this is sitting above on my 275 right now, but I had it sitting on the floor. So it was drilled on the side right here where it was an external sump pump that was pumping into the aquarium, and then the water was coming down in this top. I've actually kind of flip-flopped that aquarium, that bucket, and now I have the water going in from the top still, but like it's like basically gravity fed down now. It's not up. And I'll tell you just based off experimenting and stuff, the seal worked really good for a while. Probably like after the first year is when I would have like these random like small little drip like leaks and stuff. So that's why I was like, well, I'm gonna flip around and put it above. I'm really like I really enjoy like above aquariums, like trickle filter style the gravity goes down into the aquarium. I use that for a lot of ponds and stuff and a lot of tanks. And it's kind of unique in my basement. I have like these spaces behind the walls, and I'll actually like drill the plumbing into the wall and all that stuff, and then it comes back up on top. But then there's really just no filter. This is for a 75 gallon. So I have like 5 gallon buckets full of media, full of Metalla mat. And I even use like the filter floss and stuff, and it's for a 75. You think like some people just put like the hang on the back filters on the 75, or maybe they have 2 on a 75. Mm-hmm. If you look at that tiny space of media that you're holding, and then you imagine there's probably 20 pounds of media in that, maybe more. It really does make a big difference as far as that fluctuation, bacteria, any type of issues, and preventing a lot of that stuff. And you can also grow snails, and it's, you know, can be very biological and filtered as well. But the types that I use, again, is the overhead, like I said, homemade canisters. So these are like for house filtration that you buy, and you can buy these at like Rural King and several places. They generally have the filters in the middle of them, like carbon block filters. And I have this for like just general all the water that goes to my basement. But I also use these, and this is going to a 20 gallon, that tall clownfish tank I have that's 5 feet tall, but it's only 20 gallons. And I've got several types of mechanical filtration and a lot of biological. And I just kind of have it hidden behind my curtain in this window next to the aquarium. And it's a lot of media for that size of tank, but I never have, you know, any type of water quality issues with it, so it helps out. And as well as pressure-wise, this one's set to do really well with pressure, so you could put it on the floor if you want to, or, you know, I put it in the recess of this window, so it's helped out a lot. I've got 55 gallon drums, and again, just tons of lava rock. This one's actually above a pond I'll show you here in a minute. So it's actually like on a stool, and I've also got it hanging from underneath the rafters and underneath the stairwell, so I get pretty creative with it sometimes. And then I enjoy this one. This is like a plastic kitchen container, and I've got this on a 15 gallon, and there's like one catfish, like a chocolate catfish in there, and then some endlers that are pretty much the food for them. But it's just a small little pump filters it in. It goes through mechanical, and I've got several of that biological media in there. And this amount of biological media for a 15 gallon is like insane. That's probably one of like the best aquariums water-wise that I've got, and never had any issues with everything. And I did some research on that fish species that it really promotes or creates a lot of pH change, the fish itself, and then a lot of ammonia. And so like a lot of times people have them in small aquariums, and then they can end up killing everything in that aquarium, including themselves sometimes, really quickly. So I went way overboard on the filtration, but it's still just a small little filter pumping through here, and then it comes back down to the aquarium. It also makes it to where there's nothing else in that aquarium space-wise except for like plants and stuff. So I'm able to save that rather than having like a big sponge filter or something. Any questions on the filters? All right. So kind of going into some projects. This is one of my more recent, and it's definitely the biggest one that I've ever done. And this is a room like separate in my basement, and I wanted to turn it basically into a large enclosure. So this is kind of DIY to its max as far as putting brick down and cementing inside and basically creating a wall. Was able to use the brick wall around here as support for the water. But then I also wanted to create like a viewing panel. So I added the brick and drilled it into the ground, added the brick here, and I left this area open for a viewing panel. And then part of this, I'm not planning on moving anytime soon, so this is a permanent fixture. And if I ever do move and someone buys the house, they get a complimentary Cayman enclosure that they can use for whatever they want. This is another style of filter, and I've seen this on YouTube videos before, and it's basically, I think they're 10-inch, like 2x10s, and I bolted them together on all the corners, and then I put like a cheap pond liner. I'll generally use the 45 mil for the actual enclosures when I have, because it's pretty thick, and but like this is a cheap enclosure because there's nothing going to be in there except for just media sitting. There's nothing that can poke holes and stuff like that. It's not exposed to like sun where it's going to make a crack and everything like that. So this style of filter where it's flat, but it's like really long. I hid it underneath the land portion for the Cayman, and it's done a really, really good job. So instead of like an up and down where it's flowing through, water basically comes here and then flows to the back, and that's where the pump is. So it still has to go through all those, basically all those materials that I've got, but I've just, quantified it to fill that whole area. And I think that's 4x9, and it's around a 200-gallon filter as far as the water, how much it holds. But it's definitely doing really good for the pond portion. This is kind of like my next kind of phase that I'm going to be getting into as far as DIY stuff in the hobby. And this is a lot of like rock carving through foam. So this is that Pink Panther 2-inch foam you get from like Home Depot, Lowe's. I've kind of been doing a lot of hobby, stuff as well as stuff outside the hobby, kind of in other areas, and I'll show you an example here in a second. But I want to get into like creating backgrounds for my aquariums and using this stuff and great stuff, which is really good. As long as all that stuff cures really well, it does do good for aquariums, doesn't leach chemicals or anything. Just has to be fully cured is the key. But this is kind of the getting to the end result as far as doing that carving in that pink foam, a heat gun, and then spray paint, and then add in just a bunch of plants. I always wait till 50% off from Hobby Lobby, and I'll go there and buy big bags at a time. I try to do like $100 and then I leave. I don't do more than that, but maybe a couple trips it took to do like that full room as well as my other pond. But I did get like a $20 tree from like a Carm, and I just kind of stuck it right there in the back corner so it's coming out. So I thought that looked pretty cool. And then again, this is kind of the side view. And then I don't have a picture with the panel, but I've got this thick acrylic panel right here in the front. And I think you guys have probably seen it on Facebook before. I've put videos for sure. And then everything goes to just some filter socks. So these are generally used for like saltwater aquariums. But I bought some big ones. I just kind of clean them and switch them out every once in a while. And this is where I've actually have another pond in that's right here. It's like a 110-gallon pond. That's where I have my snapping turtle. But they're all tied to the same filter, and then they're all ran. Combined, I think it's like 1,000 gallons, because it's 100 gallons, 200, and there's like 700 in the land portion, or the water portion on that side. This is my next pond, which I actually had this one longer than that pond. I did this like 2 years ago. Just created a wood box. These are 4x4 framed in, and then shucked it in the corner right there, did plumbing going through the wall, and that's this big filter, which I told you was the above tank. So, and then just put 45 mil liner on side. And I've housed some pretty big fish in there. Right now I've got 4 peacock bass that Curtis brought back from Florida like 6 months ago or whatever, so I'm growing those guys out there now. So they're pretty small, but they're pretty crazy and fast, and they go ham on a bunch of minnows a lot of times, so it's fun to watch. A couple more projects. So this semi-aquatic, and I say that because this was my state fair entry to Fairy Garden. And this was also, if you guys seen it, at the fish walk. So it was one of the raffle items. But I created this as my first attempt ever sealing acrylic with the acrylic glue. And then I housed the bait in there. I use the lava rock not only as for looks, but that's also holding a lot of bacteria filtration and whatnot. Put some little plants in there and it's kind of went crazy with succulents and everything above. This is all foam, so my biggest struggle for this was like, it's gotta be 30 pounds or under. So I had to basically make it look really cool and rock and stuff and keep it as light as possible. The water was really the heaviest thing about it. Even using the acrylic over the glass was like a factor in it to keep it lighter. But again, cutting like the rock and doing spray painting, and that's kind of really intrigued me as far as like kind of, you know, doing it your own self and where I'm gonna be going next with a lot of my aquariums and even like the outside parts of the aquarium. And then, I think this is my last page, so I put these in here just to show like the stand. So when I bought this off of, I think it was like Facebook, this is a 100-gallon aquarium, it's a 4x8, so it didn't come with the stand, so I had to like make that completely. But it was easy because I just took a 4x8 piece of sheet of wood and then just started sticking all the, like the wood legs down, extra supports and everything. And I've also used it with a little bridge right here to hold 2 more aquariums and then the filter hidden underneath. This one is, so this was a homemade aquarium stand that is open in the front where I used to have a pond, and I've got a bunch of fish tanks underneath. And I was able to tack onto that another project when I got this 135, which is pretty much the same footprint, it's just height-wise difference. So I raised this one up to kind of match, so now I've got this 150 and this 135 kind of back to back. This one's freshwater and this one's saltwater. But I was able to like build off of this stand onto this one to get that saltwater going. And then the one underneath, and this is where again, just getting some basic plumbing skills and woodworking skills and whatnot, having the tools, I was able to put a 75 in a wall. So you got the space behind the wall in the basement, so I was able to build that stand first, cut out the hole in the wall, build a frame around it, because my hole probably wasn't exactly straight. So it looks good with the framing. And then, and you know, that was really cool. I always wanted a aquarium in the wall type of thing. And, you know, having these type of experiments and skills and stuff is able to help me with that. And then this is a pond that I dug probably 2 years ago. And in our front of our house, there's like a nook in the front of our house. And again, that's just a 55-gallon drum filter that kind of runs it all. So it pumps it over here, goes to the filter, and comes back through that little waterfall situation. All right, you guys got any questions? Anybody else DIY in here? Sure.
I do a little bit.
What are some of the projects? Aquarium stands?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I started too.
I've done a lot of the great stuff home projects, like Paludarium and
Yeah.
a few vivariums I've set up that way.
I was able to actually watch them this morning.
Yeah.
Some picture frames for
I
like
can
10
help you
gallons at the Dollar Tree and taping them together.
Oh, really?
Just kind of experimenting on lids.
Yeah.
Next time you wanna get into making some rocks and stuff, I can help you about that.
Okay. Yeah, it's total learning phase to a lot of those type of activities with it, but
That's what we do all day.
You have any other projects?
I mean, I've got several small filters. There's filters that I've made. I really like this 4-inch tube, and I can when I find like clear glass 4-inch tubes or plastic like acrylic ones, I like to make these filters that basically go over aquarium. So that's probably my next upcoming project too. Where I've got this like really long piece. I think it's like 5 feet long, and I'm gonna put it over one of my 6-foot-long aquariums and just have like filter running through it. As well as I've got some clear plastic containers that I bought from like some type of home store. But being they're plastic, I can drill through the back of them. So I was planning on trying to get a little filter that goes from like one of the big aquariums and then basically pumps and then overfills back out to the big aquarium, and I can put like betas and stuff in there. So maybe put like a beta in my 300-gallon system or something would be cool. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, JT. This month's species spotlight is dwarf Sagittaria. It's a plant that I've kept pretty much since the beginning of keeping a planted tank, and I would tell you, if you don't already have a planted tank and you're thinking about doing one, this is probably the easiest plant to start off with. It is super easy. If you've got water and a way to hold it down, it probably grows as long as you got fish and stuff in there. But you can always make it look better. But it's one of those that's kind of foolproof. I kept it in the beginning, so it is a great plant. It's a carpeting plant for a lot of people. A lot of people will use it as a carpeting plant. There's a few things about that. It is one thing I ran into because I really wasn't sure what I had at the beginning. When I bought it, it came in a little pot and it was marked as dwarf Sagittaria, but it grew really tall in my 25 gallon. And I was like, wait a minute, this is not dwarf, right? This is not small, it's too big. So when I got to looking into it, I did find that a lot of times it gets mislabeled, and what you'll have is needle leaf Sagittaria, and some of the places will still sell it as dwarf Sag. But what I have is not that. It is dwarf Sag, because needle leaf will get up to about 20 inches. It'll get almost 2 feet. Mine has not reached 2 feet, and I've never cut it. So I do have dwarf Sagittaria. I just have really bad lighting in that 25 gallon. It doesn't grow as tall now in the 75. So it is a mostly aquatic plant, which that's one of the reasons why it does really good for beginners. It can be found fully submerged out in the wild and sometimes on the banks, but a lot of the plants we keep don't actually grow in the wild underwater. And that's why they have to be perfect conditions in order to do well. This is a plant that does actually grow underwater normally, so it makes it a little bit easier. It is found in South America and Eastern United States. It is a rosette plant, so that means it grows around a center. All right, so all the leaves, kind of like Amazon sword, all the leaves come off around it, all the way around. It's a nice look, it's a grassy look, and it typically grows 4 to 6 inches with proper lighting. So it can get a little bit bigger than that. I think mine right now is probably closer to 10 in some spots in my aquarium, but that's because I currently have it underneath stuff, so I have it covered. I don't have it, what I have growing out underneath my lighting is staying a lot lower. Low light, you can keep this in anything, all right? Low light, it's going to grow taller, so you're going to get more like that, a little less than a foot, about a foot. If you have moderate light, then you can put it kind of mid-ground in your aquarium, and it'll do pretty well there. It won't get too tall. But if you have high light, you can put it in the foreground and be a carpeting plant for you. One thing I have found with it is anytime you have a bad leaf, anytime you've got a damaged leaf, go ahead and cut it off as close to the bottom as you can get, and that actually just promotes it to spread out a little bit more and not keep growing up. If you do cut the leaves, they're going to die. So if you decide I'm just going to like mow it all down, it's all going to die back and melt back. It'll come back, most likely. But it doesn't like that, right? But it does tell it, oh, maybe I don't need to grow so tall. So it does kind of train it as well. That's a great thing about it. In a small aquarium, you could use it as a background plant. In a large aquarium like a 75, it's more so mid-ground or foreground for me, depending on where it's at in the tank. Fertilizer, it is primarily a root feeder, so it has a really nice root system to it. It's got white roots. It's something I learned because I actually, in my aquarium, which is on here, I have dwarf sage, vallisneria, and chain swords, dwarf chain swords. And they all look kind of alike, and they eventually all grew together. So at one point I decided to separate them, and I spent like hours pulling them apart and looking at them and trying to figure out what's this and what's different about it. And they have a white root, whereas my dwarf chain swords have darker roots. So that's how I pulled them apart. They will also benefit from some liquid fertilizer though. So if you've got a tank that you're already dosing with liquid fertilizer, it's a good idea. You could put these in, an enriched substrate. They're going to do, obviously they're going to do really well with it because they're root feeders, but they also do pretty good in your gravel. So as long as you're feeding root tabs, they're going to do pretty good. They're not going to grow, it's going to take forever to grow them if you're not at least feeding them root tabs, but they'll probably hang in there. They're that easy. CO2 is not required, but it does benefit from it with high lighting. So if you're keeping it with high light, trying to get it to grow out and spread out, CO2 is going to benefit from that, but it's not kind of all mingled together. and I had this really crazy area of different heights, and yeah, it was fun to separate. But it's a plant I really like. There are other ways. It does flower. I've never experienced one flowering because obviously I'm not giving it its best life where it's at, but it can happen. But it's a great plant. I would recommend it to anyone. If you're looking for an easy carpet, I think it's probably one of the easier carpets. And it's got that really nice grassy look that I like. So I separated it and put it back in sand. I have mine currently back in the sand, and it's covered with it's where all the flow pushes my surface plants. So it's covered. It's getting a little taller than I want. So I'm gonna try to get the duckweed out. So, but that's it. That's 4 sections.
The only thing I would add to that is I grow it outside all year round.
Yeah.
It will keep over winter outside here.
Yeah.
So that temperature is way wrong.
Yeah, and they do often. So one thing that I've read is they don't like direct sunlight as much. They can get burned up if that happens. But they do great outside, and a lot of people will grow them in like little kid swimming pools. We'll grow them like that and get a ton of them over the summer and make a fortune selling them off.
It works good in water gardens.
Yes, they're commonly put in ponds too. So it's a great plant. Any questions about it? Anything? There is some on the table. I think I brought 3 bags, and they've each got at least 3 on there. It's not a whole lot, but
I brought a bag too.
oh, there we go. Nice. There's a few bags over there. So it is time for the attendance raffle. We will get that set up, get everybody ready. Thank you all for coming to the November meeting. Hang out, talk. We're going to try to, we don't have King here to scream out as loud as we normally do, but we'll try to let everybody know when their number is called.
Before we start, did everybody get a raffle ticket?
Yes, last chance for tickets. All right, come over here and get your tickets before we get started. And also, I meant to announce this earlier. If you didn't sign in when you came into the door, the sign-in sheet's on the corner of the table. If you'll do that, we'll keep up with that. Thank you all. Okay.
It's not fish, but people got tea.
Yeah, absolutely. Ray's got something non-fish related.
There's some designs and non-spectacles in the red.
Oh, yeah. Crazy.
He smelled all of your breath. And what's funny is I ate right before I left here, and I was like, I didn't get any gum or anything. I have to keep distance from people. So I'll be right back. I do have to.
CO2 water. There's no
How did you come upon all this too?
Alright.
So I will say these guys here, this line is crinkle swords, they're baby crinkle swords. They have been bagged since the swap, so they are not in the best of condition. So there's some dead leaves on them and stuff, but if you plant them, they will grow, they will come back. So some of them look a little rough, but they've been in a bag a while.
Alright, first number 814.
Oh, so close.
814?
814.
I didn't know.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, that's where they come out.
That is 814.
It is.
Next number is 799.
And if you come on up, just give the person in front of you a little bit of time so they can pick their items. Thank you much. You know, those, I didn't see those mics for the longest time. I see mics. And then I didn't feed it for a few days and I opened it up and oh, there they are. It was sneaking. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's what they did.
Sean brought a lot here. Y'all want this back?
There should be enough crinkle swords really for everybody to take one who wants one. There's a good bit of them.
Only have one bag. So it's like, well, I'll just throw one in there.
it's been a crazy week, and I was having to get mine like last minute. And I was like, I'm just gonna grab a handful and separate. I was like, oh, I didn't get nearly as much as I thought. I'm gonna grab the bucket. Our Halloween theme. Good. And I won't look. 796. Eight 807. So close. 807. 806. 806. 817. 813. 813. Back here. We got 16. That's what I want to do. 802.
I just think it's handled slightly more often.
They do pretty well on this about everything. Like they'll.
Mine's currently running at about right at 7.8.
We have to go to
Yeah,
that.
so I'm about 8. Where I'm at. These are the ones that go out to Sean's farm.
Yeah, he's a good boy. His name is Link. Link.
Yeah. 811. That's you.
I want to do some meals on sword too. This will be my first, my 1.5 gallon, just set up and go to South American tank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit. Mostly.
Depending on your light, you can put it mid or
Yeah, and so late, I got one of those high heat ones.
So I ended up, I have
So I can kind of control. No, I'm doing Don. Half walked after. Yeah, I plan on being involved.
816. 816.
We were listening to
804.
Yeah, I know.
We were like, wow, I can't believe I actually saw him like that.
When I do a water change, it's when I jump. Yeah, when we see someone white, every time I come.
One of our friends, he's like, yeah, I was like, right? I know, yeah.
809. you.